Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Videntis podcast. It's December 27th, 2024, and today we're going to do a deep dive into three stories that really, well, they caught my eye, and I think they're pretty significant. So help me break it all down.
I'm here.
I'm glad you're here. We're going to be looking at Syria, where things are not as settled as they seem. We'll unpack some fascinating research about gift giving, and finally, we'll land in Mozambique, where a prison break has got everyone on edge.
Sounds like quite a variety of global events today, and some potential long-term consequences.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with Syria. Now, we all remember the fall of Assad earlier this year, but it seems like the road to peace is proving to be anything but smooth.
Yeah.
We're seeing some really unsettling developments, specifically in the city of Homs.
Right. You would think that with Assad gone, things would calm down, but the reality is much more complicated. Homs is really a microcosm of the broader challenges facing Syria. We're seeing tensions rise between different factions, even some violence erupt, highlighting just how fragile the peace is.
Yeah, and one of the groups that is protesting right now is the Alawite minority, which was Assad's sect. They've been protesting following a video that allegedly showed their shrine in Aleppo being vandalized.
Yeah, and this video, whether old or new, immediately inflamed tensions. You know, the Alawites held a lot of power under Assad, and so there's a lot of fear and uncertainty about their place in a post-Assad Syria.
And to add to this complexity, the group that's now responsible for security in Homs is none other than Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS.
HTS.
A name that many will recognize as one of the main rebel groups that fought against Assad.
Right. So think about that for a moment. A group that was once considered a terrorist organization by many is now running security checkpoints, searching cars, and essentially trying to keep the peace in this very volatile city.
Yeah.
It's a pretty dramatic shift in power dynamics.
It really is. It makes you think about the long-term implications of this. Is this a sign that HTS is transitioning from an insurgent group to a more politically oriented force? Or is this just a temporary arrangement born out of necessity?
It's a question worth considering. And unfortunately, we're already seeing evidence that the situation is far from stable. There was a recent attack by pro-Assad fighters near Tartous, where they killed 14 members of these new security forces.
That's a chilling reminder that those pockets of resistance remain, and they're willing to use violence. It just seems like this conflict is far from over. It's just morphed into something new, and potentially something even more complex.
Exactly. We have former rebels trying to maintain order while facing threats from, remnants of the old regime. And caught in the middle are ordinary Syrians like Ahmad al-Baya, an Alawite resident who returned to Homs after fleeing the earlier fighting.
Right, and he said, we had been given the idea that there would be slaughter and killing based on our identity, and nothing like that happened.
Right, he went on to say, from what happened yesterday, it's clear that some people want to take the country backwards. It's a really sobering statement.
It really is. It highlights the fear and the uncertainty that many are facing. So could this be the start of a whole new chapter in the Syrian conflict?
That's a question we'll be exploring further in part 2. But for now, let's shift gears to something a little less heavy. Well, at least on the surface.
Okay.
Let's talk about gift giving.
Okay.
Specifically about how much we stress over getting those gifts delivered on time.
Oh, tell me about it. I feel like every year I'm scrambling at the last minute. But there's some new research that suggests that maybe we're all way too worried about those delivery dates.
That's right. Studies have shown that gift givers consistently overestimate the negative impact of a late gift.
Oh.
We build it up in our minds to be this huge deal, but it turns out recipients are much more forgiving than we think.
I always just assumed that people would be pretty disappointed if a gift arrives late, especially around the holidays.
Yeah, it's a natural assumption. But think about it. Why do we give gifts in the first place?
To show someone we care.
Yeah.
To celebrate a special occasion, to strengthen a bond.
Exactly. And none of those reasons are dependent on a specific date.
So you're saying that the thought really does count more than the timing.
The research certainly suggests that. In one study, a whopping 89% of recipients said they valued receiving the gift regardless of when it arrived.
Wow, 89%.
Yeah.
That's pretty convincing. I guess we really do create a lot of unnecessary pressure on ourselves.
We do. And it's not just about gifts. Think about all the areas of life where we stress over deadlines and timelines.
Oh, I know I'm a notorious deadline-driven person, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm missing the forest for the trees sometimes. Maybe I need to relax a bit and focus more on the intention behind my actions rather than just checking things off a list.
It's a valuable insight to consider. Maybe this research can serve as a reminder to be more present, more focused on the why behind our actions, and less obsessed with those rigid timelines.
It's definitely food for thought, especially during this busy holiday season. And it might just save me a lot of stress in the future. Speaking of stressful situations, our next story takes us to Mozambique, where a prison break has sparked violence and raised serious security concerns.
Yeah, this incident is a stark reminder of how quickly things can unravel, especially in the wake of a contested election. We're talking about over 1,500 inmates escaping from a prison near Maputo amidst the chaos of post-election unrest.
1,500 inmates. That's a staggering number. It sounds like something straight out of a movie. How did this even happen?
Well, it's a combination of factors. There was a riot fueled by protests over the disputed presidential election results.
Right, the Constitutional Court just confirmed Daniel Chapo's victory, but
Yes.
there have been widespread allegations of rigging from the opposition.
Exactly. So tensions were already running high, and this prison riot just added fuel to the fire. During the chaos, a wall collapsed, allowing this mass escape.
Oh, wow. And to make matters worse, 29 of those escapees are considered highly dangerous terrorists.
Yeah.
This isn't just a matter of escaped convicts. This is a serious security threat.
Absolutely. A local police official was even quoted as saying, "Police anticipate a jump in crime in Maputo within the next 2 days."
That's a chilling statement. What are the broader implications of this event? Do you think this prison break points to deeper issues within Mozambique's political system?
It's hard to say for sure, but it certainly raises some important questions. This incident seems to be a symptom of a much larger problem, a lack of trust in the electoral process, deep political divisions, and potentially even cracks in the justice system itself.
It's a worrying situation, and one that could have far-reaching consequences. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the shifting sands of power in Syria to the surprising psychology of gift-giving and a prison break that has exposed vulnerabilities in Mozambique's political system.
Yeah, these stories, while seemingly unrelated, offer a glimpse into the complexities and the interconnectedness of our world. They raise questions about the nature of power, the impact of perception, and the fragile nature of peace and stability.
It's a lot to unpack, and I think it's important to step back and consider the bigger picture. What connects these seemingly disparate events? What can we learn from them, and how can we apply these lessons to our own lives? We'll be exploring these questions and more in part 2 of our deep dive. So stay tuned. So we just talked about a lot of heavy stuff like conflict and political unrest, and it can be a little bit overwhelming to think about all that. So I think it's a good time to maybe shift gears a little bit to something that's a little bit lighter, something that might actually spark some joy and maybe even relieve a little bit of holiday stress.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so let's talk about gift giving. Specifically, all that stress we put on ourselves to get those gifts delivered on time.
Oh, yeah. That holiday shipping deadline pressure cooker.
Seriously. Like every year, I'm scrambling at the last minute trying to make sure everything arrives on time.
Yeah.
But, there's some interesting new research out there that suggests that maybe we're all way too worried about those delivery dates.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh, interesting. So what are they saying?
Well, studies have shown that gift givers consistently overestimate the negative impact of a late gift. Like, we think it's going to be this big, huge deal breaker.
Right.
But it turns out that people are actually way more forgiving than we think.
That is interesting. What do you think is going on there psychologically?
Well, I think part of it is that we just get so caught up in the whole holiday frenzy, the shopping, the wrapping, the decorating, that we forget what really matters.
The thought that counts.
Exactly. Like, why do we give gifts in the first place?
Good question. Yeah, why do we?
I mean, is it to prove that we can get a package delivered on time?
Or is it something more than that?
Right. It's about showing someone that we care about them. It's about celebrating a special occasion. It's about strengthening that bond. And none of those things are dependent on a specific date.
So the date doesn't really matter.
Not really.
Yeah.
It's the thought behind the gift that really counts.
Okay, so you're telling me that if my gift is late, it's not the end of the world.
Definitely not. In fact, there was one study where 89% of recipients said that they valued receiving the gift, regardless of when it arrived.
89%. Wow, okay, that's a pretty compelling statistic. So maybe we are putting a little too much pressure on ourselves.
Yeah, I think we are. And it's not just about gifts either.
Yeah.
Think about all the areas of life where we stress over deadlines and timelines.
Oh yeah, work projects, social engagements.
Exactly. And I'm just as guilty of this as anyone. I'm a total deadline-driven person.
Me too.
But, this research has really got me thinking, maybe I need to chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to focus more on the intention behind my actions rather than just checking things off a list.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe this whole gift-giving thing can be a reminder for all of us to be more present, to be more focused on the why behind what we do, and a little less obsessed with those rigid timelines.
Totally. And you know what? It might just save us a lot of stress and heartache in the long run.
That's a great holiday gift to give yourself.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about war and peace. We've talked about the psychology of gift giving. Now let's head to Mozambique, where a prison break has sparked violence and raised some serious security concerns.
All right, sounds heavy.
It is. This incident is a stark reminder of how quickly things can unravel, especially after a contested election.
Yeah, elections can bring out a lot of raw emotion.
For sure. So we're talking about over 1,500 inmates escaping from a prison near Maputo.
Yeah.
And this all happened amidst post-election unrest.
Wow, 1,900 inmates. That's a huge number.
It is. It sounds like something straight out of a movie. Like, how did this even happen?
Well, it seems like there were a few things that kind of converged to create this perfect storm. First, you have the disputed election results.
Right, the Constitutional Court just confirmed Daniel Chapo's victory.
Uh-huh.
But there have been all these allegations of rigging coming from the opposition.
Exactly. So you can imagine that tensions were already running pretty high. Then you have a prison riot that breaks out, fueled by all of this political turmoil. And in the midst of the chaos, a wall collapses, allowing for this mass escape.
And it gets even worse. 29 of those escapees are considered highly dangerous terrorists. So this isn't just a matter of, a few escaped convicts. This is a major security threat.
Absolutely. I mean, even the local police are saying, we expect to see a jump in crime in Maputo within the next 2 days.
That's a pretty chilling statement.
Uh-huh.
What are the broader implications of this whole event? I mean, do you think that this prison break points to deeper issues within Mozambique's political system?
I think it's definitely possible. I mean, on the surface, you have a prison break. But if you dig a little deeper, you start to see all these cracks in the foundation, a lack of trust in the electoral process, deep political divisions, and potentially even some serious issues within the justice system itself.
Right, so this one event kind of becomes a microcosm of all these larger systemic problems.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that you can't just address the symptoms. You have to get to the root of the problem if you want to create real, lasting change.
Well said. So today we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about the shifting power dynamics in Syria. We've unpacked the psychology of gift giving, and we've explored the implications of a prison break in Mozambique.
And on the surface, these stories might seem completely unrelated.
True.
But if you look closely, there are actually some pretty interesting threads connecting them all.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So we've talked about the shifting sands of power in Syria and unpacked the psychology of gift giving and explored the implications of that prison break in Mozambique.
Right, and it's easy to see these stories as completely separate, but I think there's actually
They're all kind of tied together.
some really fascinating connections between them.
Yeah, and one of the big ones is power.
Power.
Who has it? Who wants it? What lengths will people go to get it and to keep? I mean, look at Syria. You have all these different groups fighting for control of the country.
Yeah, and in Mozambique, it's the political maneuvering, the election, rigging, the prison break.
Yeah.
It all comes back to this struggle for power.
Exactly. And even that gift-giving research, it touches on power dynamics in a way.
How so?
Well, think about it. We feel this pressure to get the gift right, to get it there on time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like there's this unspoken rule.
It's like this unspoken rule, and if we break it well, then
We feel like we've failed.
we feel like we've failed.
Like we haven't lived up to some kind of expectation.
Exactly. And that perception, that fear of failure, that can be really powerful.
They can drive our decisions.
It really can. Think about those last-minute shoppers, those impulse buys, all because we feel guilty about being late.
Right. Or those political leaders who make these shady deals just to hold on to power.
Exactly. It's all about control, about not appearing weak or incompetent.
It's very human impulse.
It is, but it can have some pretty devastating consequences.
So where do we go from here? How do we navigate a world where power is constantly in flux and the pressure to conform can feel really intense?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think it starts with awareness.
Awareness.
We need to be aware of what's going on around us, but also what's going on inside of us. Our own biases, our own fears, our own motivations. We need to be critical thinkers to question assumptions and look beyond the surface.
Right, because things aren't always what they seem.
Exactly. And most importantly, I think we need to remember that we always have a choice. A choice. We can react or we can respond. We can be driven by fear or we can be guided by our values. It's up to us.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the midst of all this chaos, we still have agency. We have the power to shape our own reality.
And that's why staying informed is so important. The more we understand about the world, the better equipped we are to make those choices, to navigate the complexities of life.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It really does. A huge thank you to you for joining me today and sharing your insights.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all of our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in and for engaging with these important conversations. Remember, the world is full of fascinating stories waiting to be uncovered. So stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.